and welcome to make sense of energy rebates and loans. We at Emerge are really excited to have you here today. We've had over 80 people register for this event. It gives you an indication of how excited people are for getting work done around their homes and helping to fight climate change. I want to start with our land acknowledgement. And on this Indigenous Peoples Day, and in memory of the thousands of children who were sent to residential schools, of those who never returned, of the missing and murdered Indigenous women, and in honor of the families whose lives were forever changed, we make this land acknowledgement. The community that we know as Guelph resides on the lands of the Etowah people and the territories of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Our community is uniquely positioned on territories that are recognized within the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement, which is an Indigenous citizenship law made between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe nations in 1701. And it extends from Montreal all the way to Fort Erie. And it has three basic rules. Take only what you need. Leave some for everyone else, and keep it clean. We keep those rules in mind with the work that we do here at Emerge to fight climate change. We help people take action in their daily lives while advocating for better policy to fight climate change in Guelph and on other levels of government as well. And on that note, I want to just give you a brief introduction about who we are and how this fits into what we're working on. But as most of you know, what our mandate at Emerge is to fight climate change. And we do this in two specific areas, specifically with individual action, where we help people take action to limit their impacts on climate change, and if anything, have a positive impact on mitigating climate change as much as possible. And while we want to help people get motivated to actually do that individual action, we also want people to understand that if all we do is just that individual action without getting involved with policy, I know it's a horrible word and it makes people bored at times, but this is about getting good policy on the municipal, provincial, and a federal level. And this is as much as just letting your politicians know that climate change is really important to you. That piece is critical. This gives you a sense of where the community emissions are at this point in Guelph. This is fresh off the press. It's from the city's 2022 sustainability report. And interestingly enough, some of the numbers changed from the last time that they issued these numbers, and mainly what it showed for 2022 on was the transportation piece it was in the 2022 sustainability report, but it was referring to 2021 numbers, that the transportation numbers jumped from about 26% to 30%. On a yearly basis, they may be moving, probably because of COVID. There was a significant reduction in the amount of gasoline that was used or the amount of travel that we were all doing. But what we're focusing on tonight is the residential buildings. And this graph also, what I'm hoping it does is gives you an idea about, yes, we can do all the best action in our homes, but we need to work with politicians and on policy side of things to make sure that we can impact those other pieces from the transportation, industrial buildings, institutional buildings, and of course, waste and wastewater end of it. And in Guelph, we have two specific targets: net zero carbon by 2050 and 100% renewable. Sorry, the net zero carbon by 2050 is for the entire community, and the 100% renewable is specifically for the city of Guelph. We think that's a higher target and it's a higher bar, and we were instrumental in getting, well, both of those, but specifically the 100% renewable energy for the corporation of the city of Guelph. We'd like to see that as the community-wide target. There are many good things associated with that, but there are also some challenges associated with it as well. One of the issues that we've been dealing with since 2021 is that the city committed to interim climate change targets for each term of council that would land around the third year of each term of council. Unfortunately, they still haven't issued those. We've been promised that they would come out in the second quarter of 2023, and the second quarter is the end of June, so that ends in a couple of weeks. These are the two things that we're expecting by the end of June, those interim climate change targets for the entire community, not just the corporation of the city of Guelph. And also we're expecting something called the Guelph Greener Homes Program that some of you may have heard about. What we're providing you with here is not an awful lot of information, but this is what we were able to pull from a council meeting that we were at, where it was released. Our speaker tonight, Sydney, is going to be talking about the CMHC loan, but this is separate from it. This would be potentially on top of the CMHC loan of $40,000. So through the city of Guelph, with the Guelph Greener Homes Loan Program, you'd be eligible for up to $40,000 on energy efficiency, conservation, and renewables. It would be zero interest for a 10-year amortization, and the payments would be added to your tax bill. It's expected in June. We'll see whether that happens. Let's hope that it's going to happen. The details may change, and we may have these details incorrect as well. But this gives you a sense of the type of thing that the city is looking to do specifically to help move the needle on things. And as probably many of you heard us talk about in before, is that how we try to help people is to take a hierarchical approach around their homes and in their lives. If we can start with efficiency and conservation, or let me backtrack and say, the biggest contributor to climate change around the world, 80% of the contributions, well over 80% of contributions to climate change is because of the burning of fossil fuels. So what we see is by working on a hierarchical approach of efficiency and conservation first, reduce the demand, then electrify all the different elements of your life, everything from heating, cooling, and transportation or active transportation, then looking at renewable energy in different ways, then looking at carbon sequestration, planting tree. By that we mean planting trees and other things to try to store carbon, either on your own property if you're in an apartment and you don't own your home. The other option that presents itself is to work with many of the great groups in the city that plant trees on public property and in other places. And finally, tell your politicians that climate change is important to you. And on that note, I want to introduce to you our guest speaker for the evening. But what I'd like to also tell you is that we're partnering with our friends at REAP Green Solutions. They are colleagues of a member organization that we're part of called Green Communities Canada. And many of you are probably looking for energy auditors. We want to encourage you to go to see our friends at REAP Green Solutions. We suggested that this would be an excellent approach. Number one, that they're a not-for-profit, they're a charity. But number two, they've been in the business for well over 20 years of doing these EnerGuide ratings and can help significantly. So and on that note, I want to introduce to you our guest speaker for the evening. That's Sydney Hennessy. She's the Energy Programs Coordinator at REAP Green Solutions, and she's going to help us make sense of energy loans and rebates. Over to you, Sydney.
Thank you, Evan. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so first I'm just going to start by giving a quick introduction to REAP Green Solutions. So we are an environmental charity that has been helping people live sustainably for about 24 years now. And our programs and services focus on things like home energy efficiency, water conservation, waste reduction, and healthy yards. And we're based in Waterloo region, but many of our services, including energy evaluations, backyard tree planting, and rain garden coaching, are also available for homeowners in Guelph and surrounding area as well. So I work on the energy team at REAP Green Solutions. And my role involves matching up homeowners with an energy advisor to help them learn more about the energy efficiency of their home and to help them learn about the available incentive programs and the process involved in applying for rebates and loans. And the first step to many rebate and loan programs is to have a home energy evaluation. So during an energy evaluation, a registered energy advisor comes to your home and they assess it from attic to basement, taking a look at all of the different energy related features of your home, including things like insulation levels, windows and doors, heating and cooling systems. And they'll also perform an air tightness test, also known as a blower door test, to identify areas of air leakage. Then once they're finished their assessment, they take all of that information that they've gathered at your home and they put together a report for you with some recommendations of upgrades that you can complete to make your home more energy efficient and more comfortable, to save energy. And it can be great to have an energy evaluation in general before you start a renovation project to learn more about different upgrades that can help you to save energy, and also to learn about what kinds of incentives may be available for the work that you're completing. We also see a lot of homeowners who have recently purchased their home, who are looking for energy evaluations to learn more about their house and to get some guidance on what kinds of upgrades may be good priorities for their home. And in addition to receiving a report with recommendations for upgrades that you can do, every energy evaluation comes with an EnerGuide rating or an EnerGuide label, like you can see here on the left of the screen. And this will show the energy rating for your home compared to a typical new house. So you can start to understand your home's energy consumption, and will give you an estimated breakdown of where that rated energy is coming from, whether that's for your space heating or your space cooling or your ventilation, for example, to help you to understand your home a little bit better. Well, at this time, the main rebate program that is available is called Home Efficiency Rebate Plus, which is co-delivered by Enbridge Gas and the Canada Greener Homes Grant for homeowners in Ontario. And homeowners who use Enbridge Gas for space heating are eligible for rebates up to $10,600. If you're not an Enbridge Gas customer, so let's say you heat with oil or propane or another fuel source, you can still get up to $5,600 in rebates through the federal government for your primary residence. So how does this program work? Well, the first step in the rebate program or the loan program is to schedule an initial home energy evaluation. And this is the process that I described before, where the energy advisor comes to your home to assess all of the energy related features and prepares that report for you with the recommendations. And it's very important that you have the evaluation before you start any of your renovations so that the energy advisor can really build a baseline for your home. Next, in step 2, you can review your report, which will outline the recommendations that the energy advisor has made for your home and the associated rebates that are available for the different types of upgrades that they recommend. And then to participate in the rebate program, you would need to complete at least one eligible upgrade, and I'll go through what the eligible upgrades are in just a moment. And then once you have finished all of your upgrades, you move to step 4, where you schedule a follow-up home energy evaluation with your energy advisor. And during this follow-up evaluation, the energy advisor returns to take a look at the renovations that you've completed to verify for them for the rebate program, to update your home's energy efficiency rating, and they'll also ask to see any receipts and invoices associated with the upgrades that you've completed that we would then submit through to the rebate program on your behalf. Then finally, step number 5, once your follow-up evaluation has been completed, you would receive a rebate in the form of a check by mail, which would include $600 rebate specifically towards your assessment costs, as well as your rebate amount up to $10,000 for the upgrades that you've completed. So now I'm just going to take a bit of time to walk through some of the available incentives for different types of upgrades. And the rebate amounts for the rebate program, are based off of the types of upgrades that are completed rather than your home's energy efficiency rating before and after your renovations, which makes it a little bit easier to predict the rebate amount you could expect to get back for completing different types of upgrades. So in this middle column, you will see the maximum rebate amount available for Enbridge gas customers. And then on the right, the maximum amount for non-Enbridge customers for each of the different upgrade types. So if you are a non-Enbridge customer, your rebate would be fully funded by the federal government. And then if you were an Enbridge customer, you would still receive those federal rebates, but Enbridge just tops up those amounts for their customers. So they add a little bit of funding there as well. So I'm going to start with insulation, which is a big category. So I've split it into 2 slides. And insulation is one of our top recommendations for homeowners to prioritize for their home. Adding insulation to our homes can save us energy by keeping the heat in during the winter, and can lower the heating loads of our homes so that we need smaller heating and cooling systems that use less energy. And one of the more popular choices for insulation lately is the attic, where homeowners can get up to $2,350 back for increasing their attic or cathedral ceiling insulation. And the attic insulation rebates are based off of the insulation level or R value that you're starting with. So the less amount of insulation that you're starting with, the more opportunity you have for improvement, and therefore the higher the rebate that would be available. There are also rebates up to $6,750 available for exterior wall insulation. So this can be done, so think about the outside walls of your home, your insulated walls, and you can either, for the rebate program, add insulation from the interior of the home or add it to the exterior, which can be a popular choice when a homeowner is planning to replace their siding. And then the final one for this page would be exposed floor insulation, where you may have a floor that is overhanging or above an unheated space, such as if you have a bedroom above an unheated garage. There are also a lot of rebates available for insulation in the basement. So for both exterior wall insulation, which I mentioned on the previous slide, and for basement wall insulation, the rebate amounts are based on the insulation level or the R value that is added. So the greater R value that you add, the better it will do at insulating, so you'd be eligible for a higher rebate amount. And in addition to basement walls, there are also rebates available for basement headers, basement slab insulation or basement floor, and crawl spaces. And then the final one from this list would be air sealing. So you can also get a rebate for air sealing or for improving the air tightness of your home when you meet a certain air tightness target. And the way that this one works is that the energy advisor measures the air tightness of the home at the pre-renovation assessment, so before you've done any upgrades for your home. And then they compare that to the test results from your post-renovation assessment to determine if your air tightness target has been met, and therefore if you'd be eligible for a rebate. And usually we see that the air sealing target is met by doing several different building envelope improvements like windows, insulation, and other draft proofing. And then up next, we have windows and doors. So windows and sliding glass doors or patio doors have rebates available up to $325 per rough opening, depending on the energy efficiency level. So for both windows and doors, they would need to be Energy Star certified models in order to qualify. And then based on the efficiency rating, that would help to determine the amount that you would get per opening. And by per opening, what I mean is that whether, let's say it's a large bay window that is built up of multiple window units or a small window in your basement, that would still be eligible for the same rebate amount. Then exterior hinge doors, rather than your sliding door, so think about maybe your front door, they are eligible for one flat rate of $175 per rough opening for Energy Star certified models. And all Energy Star certified windows and doors will come with a label like this one on the left here that shows the efficiency information for that model. And window and door suppliers should be able to confirm the efficiency details of your windows and doors before you order them so that you know that they will be eligible for the program and you can know what to expect for that rebate amount per opening. Rebates are also available for heat pumps for both space and water heating. So heat pumps are an efficient option for heating and cooling in the home because they work by transferring heat from one place to another rather than using energy directly to generate heat like a gas furnace would or an electric baseboard system would. And they're becoming a lot more popular in our area. So since the federal incentive program started back in 2021, over 30% or about a third of homeowners that we've seen go through the rebate program have had a heat pump installed as one of the upgrades to their home. And it can be a particularly attractive option when you're looking to replace both your furnace and your air conditioner, as the heat pump system offers both heating and cooling. It can also be popular when you may be starting with oil or propane as your heating source because there is a bigger opportunity to save money on your heating costs as well. And a heat pump could be a hybrid system where you keep your natural gas furnace as a backup for the coldest nights of the year, but that is not necessary. You can also go with an all-electric system that has a built-in electric backup instead, so you can get off of natural gas. So options for the heat pumps for space heating and cooling include air source heat pump systems, which are about 90%, I would say, of the heat pumps that we see installed in our area. And then there are also ground source or geothermal systems, which make up that remaining 10%, which tend to be more popular in more rural areas where homeowners have more land to install the system since you need to do some drilling into the ground. So more land generally helps to make that more feasible. And then in the bottom portion of the screen, you'll also see the water heating rebate, which is for heat pump water heaters, where you can get up to $1,300 back for a heat pump water heater that works similar to a space heating air source heat pump in that it is moving heat from the surrounding area to heat your water. And there's a picture of one in the bottom left corner here. It just kind of looks like a traditional tank water heater. So to sum up, for space and water heating, you'll notice that there are no longer rebates available for natural gas equipment. So if you were looking to replace a natural gas furnace or air conditioning unit with a new one, or install any kind of natural gas water heater, it would not be eligible for the program. Solar panels have been another popular option for the grant, with rebates up to $5,000 funded by the federal government, as long as the home is your primary residence. And this can be a great addition to the home, especially if you've already completed a lot of other upgrades to your home and you are wanting to try to get your home closer to net zero. And they can be, for the program, they can be installed on your house if you want to put them on the roof, or you can put them on the ground. As long as they're on your property, they can be eligible for the program. So finally, just a few more incentives to share that are covered through the grant and a loan program. There are a few rebates available for some resiliency measures, which would be the first three in this table here, which includes a roofing membrane, if you're replacing your roof and putting membrane underlay underneath it, crawl space moisture proofing, and basement waterproofing. There are also rebates up to $125 available for replacing a manual thermostat with a smart thermostat. So that covers all of the eligible upgrades for the program. And I'll talk about the loan program in just a moment, but if you would like to find more information about the different upgrade types and the rebate amounts, you can find that through the Enbridge website, which I'm going to send the link in the chat for. And then just to finish up, I wanted to point out a few other resources that are available. So first, there is the Zero Interest Loan Program that Evan had mentioned at the start. And this loan program, not to be confused with the Guelph Greener Homes one that Evan had mentioned, is run through the federal government and CMHC, and it complements the Home Efficiency Rebate Plus program. So all of the same upgrades that I walked through that are eligible for a rebate, so things like solar, heat pumps, windows and doors, insulation, can also be eligible for a loan. And you can go through the process at the same time as the rebate program. And these loans range from $5,000 up to $40,000. They're also zero interest and have a 10-year payback period. And you can apply for the loan program after you've had your initial energy evaluation and use those same assessments to apply for the loan program as you would for the rebate program. The second line here is just for that we have a page on our website with some other rebates and incentives to check out, which include energy efficiency, water efficiency, stormwater management for your home. And I'll share all these links in the chat as well. And we also have a Home Energy 101 page that has more resources on things like heat pumps and insulation in the form of videos and blog posts, which can be really helpful as you're thinking through some of the upgrades that you may take on, or if you just want to learn more about different energy efficiency or water conservation features. Finally, I'd also like to welcome you to check out the Reap House for Sustainable Living, which is a demonstration home in Kitchener that has been fully retrofitted with many different energy efficient and water efficient features. So if you want to learn about different types of insulation, or you want to see an air source heat pump or a ground source heat pump in action, you can come for a tour. And we try to do one open house a month where you can drop by. I think our next one is this upcoming Tuesday, the 27th in the evening. But if you can't make it in person for a tour as well, you can also do a self-guided tour of the home through our website, which I'll link in the chat as well. So that is kind of my basic overview of the rebate program and the loan program. I know it's a lot of information, so normally I try to kind of give an overview, and then if folks have more detailed questions, I'm always happy to answer those as well. And if you would like to get more information about our energy evaluation services, you can visit our website at reapgreen.ca/energy evaluation. We also have a request form there that you can fill out if you're interested in getting started with an energy evaluation for your home. But thank you so much for listening to my presentation.
Thank you, Sydney. Really appreciate that. We could just stop the screen sharing rather, then we could get into a conversation here. And there was a couple of questions that people sent to me in advance, and one of the ones that I just wanted to bring up right away was the issue of how do people go through the process? My understanding is that generally you apply through the HER program, then you get your EnerGuide rating. I just wanted to, if you could just talk people through that process, I think that would be very, very helpful. Another question that's out there is on the do-it-yourself side. What happens if someone wants to do it themselves? That it would be great to have some understanding on that. And I'll keep an eye on the chat, Sydney, as you delve into those two.
Perfect. Yes, thanks so much, Evan. So starting out with kind of the overview of the process, kind of from start to finish. So the first thing that you can do as a homeowner is, I'll put the link in the chat again. If you go to the Enbridge Home Efficiency Rebate Plus program webpage, you'll find a section that is called, it's something along the lines of, are you interested in learning about what rebates your home is eligible for? And it'll ask you to click through a few questions like, is your home detached? Are you an Enbridge gas customer? Is it owner occupied? And then based on your answers, they will give you a similar kind of overview of all of the different upgrade categories and the associated rebate amounts with it. And it can be a little bit confusing because it seems like you're kind of enrolling in the program by doing that, but the next step that they want you to take is to contact a service organization to do your initial energy evaluation. So when you do complete that quick little survey, you can also get a list of all of the different service providers for energy evaluations within your area based on your postal code. And then from there, you can contact the service organization like REAP to do your energy evaluation. And at the time of the initial evaluation, your energy advisor will have you sign a participation form, and that will enroll you into the rebate program. Then if you want to apply for the loan program as well, it's totally optional. You don't need to necessarily apply for the loan. Then you would do that online, and you would just need at least one contractor quote for all of the upgrades that you'd be looking to complete. And because they'll use that to help determine the rebate amount or the loan amount, pardon me. And then you would submit your loan application off. Then if you were applying for the loan, they would give you up to 15% of that loan amount, of the approved loan amount, up front. And then you'd get that remaining loan amount after you'd finished your upgrades and had your follow-up assessment. For both the loan and the rebate program, you'd want to save all of your receipts and invoices along the way. And then we would collect those at the time of the follow-up assessment. Then we would submit to Enbridge for the grant program to get your rebate process. So we do all of the stuff on the rebate side of things. And then for the loan program, you just have to separately submit your receipts and invoices there to get your final loan amount. And for the grant program, another related question I get is, are there any deadlines? Do I need to finish my upgrades by a certain time? And the answer is no. We're expecting the current grant program to go to at least 2027 at this point, and they haven't set any deadlines that you would need to complete your upgrades by or have your follow-up assessment. And then the other question you had was about DIY work, so do it yourself. And that's a great question. I get asked that all of the time. So for basic upgrades like insulation, windows and doors, air sealing, you can definitely do that work yourself. You would just like with the contractor, working with the contractor, you want to keep all your receipts for your materials along the way, and we would submit those. So you would just be eligible towards the material costs. There wouldn't be any labor work associated with that for to be eligible to be reimbursed. And same goes for the loan program as well. You can, even though it'll ask you to submit a contractor quote, you can just say that you're going to be doing the work yourself and still be eligible for the loan amount as well. So do-it-yourself work for those basic windows and doors, insulation. Even though they do recommend that you have a professional do the work, it would only be things like heat pump water heaters and heat pumps that you would need to have a licensed professional to install those in order to qualify for the program.
That's great, Sydney. Thank you. Just a couple of points. There was one question: why is Enbridge offering grants? Well, what's in it for them? Enbridge has to offer that. It's part of their contract with the Ontario Energy Board. They're mandated to deliver a certain amount of conservation. So out of their profits, they need to provide these grants. However, the good thing is that the OEB, the Ontario Energy Board, also told them that they can no longer offer grants for furnaces. So it provides, so they're in a position where they're helping people to get grants for air source heat pumps. There was another question there. You just bear with me. I'll dig these other ones up. So there was one about what about living in a condo or a townhouse? How many of the programs apply under that scenario? Did we lose you, Sydney?
Yes, I'm right here. So you can, if you are in a townhouse that is side by side, so you're just sharing walls with adjacent units, then you would be eligible. So it would just be for things like exterior insulation. They would just prorate that so that like 3/4 if you're an end unit, for example, would be eligible, or your front and back. So for side by side, you can still be eligible for the program. For stacked townhouses, it gets more complicated. So we can't do evaluations for any homes that are more than a single family home. So if there's additional basements, or if it's a duplex or a triplex, then we can't do the evaluations, but there are still rebates available for multi-unit residential buildings. That would just need to be done by a service organization that has specific licensing to do multi-unit residential buildings. Another thing to consider for townhouses, and especially if there's a condo board, is what would be allowed. So I know in many of those situations, folks may not be able to do solar, for example, or they may have restrictions on what kinds of upgrades or changes they are able to make to their home. So I usually recommend finding that out with the condo board first before kind of diving into the program and figuring out what renovations you may want to do.
Sydney, I'm seeing a question here, and maybe I can help with this one. It says that they're asking about is there certain type of equipment that can be covered? But yes, there's very specific types of equipment, specifically around air source heat pumps. And we would just caution you with air source heat pumps where you're looking to do what they call a hybrid, where you may keep your current furnace and add an air source heat pump. The two of them need to be compatible. So you need to be sure that the HVAC or heating, ventilation, and air conditioning contractor that you're working with understands and can show you that indeed both of those systems are compatible with each other. Otherwise, that won't work. And I'm just trying to think what other equipment. I guess the air source heat pump would be the most complicated. Of course, Sydney, you mentioned the Energy Star ratings on windows and doors as well. But there's some other very specific items on there. Can you share the other items?
Yeah, so there are approved product lists for air source heat pumps, ground source heat pumps, heat pump water heaters. So all of your kind of mechanical equipment will have an approved product list. And then the windows and doors also have approved product lists that are based on being Energy Star rated or Energy Star certified. And then there are two different levels of Energy Star certification. So there's a standard Energy Star certification, and then there's what they call their most efficient models. And then based on the energy rating, they will your windows will either fit into that standard Energy Star certification, which would be eligible for $175 per ref opening for Enbridge customers. And then those most efficient models would be worth more at $325 per ref opening. So windows and doors, and then those equipment upgrades, heat pumps, heat pump water heaters would need to be on approved product lists.
Here's a very specific question from Janet. She had an assessment and decided to do the unfinished part of her basement, which she did. Then she learned that the finished part of her basement is not insulated. Will this be expensive to fix because I'll need new studs and drywall and finishing? Could I get a loan to do just that portion of the work? The rest was not expensive.
Yeah, so the rebate or for the loan program, you can apply for the loan as long as you haven't started that work yet. And then the loan amount, the way that they determine it is that they'll use kind of an estimate of what your expected costs for that would be, but then they also have a max for each upgrade type that they will offer. So they may have a maximum that they would offer for basement wall insulation. They may have a maximum they would offer for a heat pump. So it's difficult from our perspective to know what the maximum they would offer for that would be because they don't share those numbers with us. CMHC doesn't. But certainly if you reach out to the loan program, they'd be able to give you a better idea of what those maximum loan amounts would be for the different types of upgrades.
And, right, okay, and you got the CMHC, you talked about that one. And does the rebate program require insulation company to be listed with the government?
No, so there isn't an approved list of contractors to go with. We do recommend for all upgrades, if you're getting a contractor, to get at least 3 quotes because it's good to get an idea of the contractor. And from what I've heard from homeowners as well, for a similar job, you can get wildly different quoted amounts for that. So that would be my note, is to get at least 3 quotes for any kind of upgrade that you would be doing, but there isn't a specific list that you would need to choose from to be eligible for the program.
A question of that can either loan program, they're asking specifically about the Guelph loan as well, and that we don't know any more about, so we'll duck that one. But the federal loan program, can the funds of the loan be used for re-roofing prior to solar PV installation?
That's a great question. So my, from my understanding, the loan can be used for any kind of work that would be associated with achieving that. So that would be something that I would recommend if you're applying for the loan to add that in as part of your quotes for getting the work done. Same as if, for example, you were having an air source heat pump installed and you were going to need to do electrical panel upgrades to your home. I'd recommend putting that into the loan amount as well. They do have, as I mentioned before, a cap for each type of retrofit. So it could be that it wouldn't cover both the work for your roof and the solar, but it would be something that I'd recommend adding kind of all of your costs associated with doing that upgrade into your loan application.
Ank is asking if there's any email or phone number to get help during this process. Sorry, Ank, I see that you have, I now see that you had your hand up there. I'm assuming.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah.
Can I go ahead with my silly questions?
Certainly, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Sydney and everyone for detailed information. So far I understand I should start the application through the Enbridge link that you provided. My question is how the data shared among Enbridge, and Rip Green or Emerge. So is that Emerge goal for Rip Green only advocating for those facilities for homeowners, or like Emerge and Rip Green actually participating and helping Guelph customers or Guelph homeowners?
That's a great question. So I think I'll start by answering your question, and then I'd like to welcome you to to ask a follow-up if I don't cover that correctly. So we, in addition to doing the home energy evaluation, so we do the assessment where the energy advisor comes to your home. Before they even do that, you're welcome to reach out to us to ask questions about the grant program, ask questions about the loan program, get all of those out of the way so that you know that the program is right for you before you even had your initial energy evaluation. Then once you've had that evaluation and received your report, you can come back to us to ask questions about your report and about the details and the rebates associated with it. And then once you're finished your upgrades, we would submit through to the rebate program on your behalf. So we really work with the homeowner kind of each step of the way in the journey for the incentive programs. And now I welcome a follow-up question for that if I didn't answer that correctly.
Oh, sure. Thank you so much for that. And I have those email and the phone number so I can easily communicate. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Perfect.
Sydney, here's one from Julie who said that they registered for the Greener Homes grant. How do we get in on the Enbridge grants? And Julie, I don't know, did you actually have the subsequent assessment? I know you had the first one. You may have to put it in the chat, or you might want to unmute and just jump in if you want. Are you there, Julie? Gee, there's so many questions here. We're not going to get to all of them, obviously.
Hi, sorry. No, we haven't had the second assessment done.
Okay, yes. So how that will work is if you registered with the Canada Greener Homes Grant, which is just the federal portion of the grant, in order to access rebates through the enhanced rebates amounts through the Home Efficiency Rebate Plus program, all the energy advisor would do is at the time of your second evaluation, they'll just have you sign a new participation form. We'll submit everything through to Enbridge and you're good to go. So there isn't anything that you will need to do until the time of your follow-up assessment in signing that participation form to move over to the new program, unless you have.
Is that me or is that you, Sydney? Can you hear me? Hello? Is anyone out there able to hear me? Can you just type me a message?
I can hear you.
Okay, so I guess we lost Sydney there for a second.
I can hear Sydney.
You can hear Sydney. I can't hear Sydney. Julie, can you still hear Sydney now?
take to receive the rebate once all work is complete and the second audit is complete. So for the home efficiency rebate program, it usually takes, I would say, about 3 to 4 months to receive the rebate after you've been through the rebate program. Right now, Enbridge is working through a little bit of a backlog, so it's a little bit longer than that at this time, but I would say normally about 3 to 4 months. And then for the loan program, it's a much faster turnaround. So I think once you've had your follow-up assessment and have all of your documents, they transfer it to you within about 10 days. So it's a bit quicker turnaround with the loan than for the grant.
Sorry about that, Sydney. My system went down. My chat has erased, but I did notice there was one from Mary asking about how does the Guelph Greener Homes loan. We don't know exactly how it's going to work, but we initially we understood that it would be stackable, so that if indeed you were going well over the $40,000 of the CMHC loan, that you would potentially be able to add on the city one. We don't know yet, but as soon as we see anything on it, we'll be sure to send it to everyone on our newsletter list. And I'm afraid I don't see anything else in the chat because of the fact that I lost an internet connection through that. So you might be able to see that better than I can, Sydney.
I'm going to keep going. So Susan says there are some scam companies that want to get into your house to get a rental contract signed. How can we identify such companies? I get calls about this all of the time, unfortunately, where and often, like 100% of the time, it's usually someone who has reached out to you. So come to your door, and they're usually very pushy in that they would want you to sign something on the spot. So an important thing to note is that for the legitimate program, we would never reach out to you. We would never come door to door. You would have to hire someone to do your energy assessment for the program. So that would be one thing that I would say is a red flag right away, is if someone is coming to you to offer these programs with a long contract involved. And another thing I would say on that is, if you do ever have any experiences where someone calls you up and you think it's suspicious, or someone comes to your door, please collect as much information that you can, and then send it to us, because we can send it along to Enbridge and Natural Resources Canada to help to identify these.
I'm listening to something about
companies.
Rebates and loans. Can I call you back? Okay, bye.
Sandy, can we ask you to mute there?
Sandy?
Yeah, Sandy, we could hear you there. If you if you wouldn't mind muting. If I could just add on to what Sydney was saying, I've received at least a dozen AI generated calls to get people to come to the house, which I was really quite surprised by. It's very aggressive, and what became evident was that if you're not sure it's a real person and you ask them, they won't actually deny it, one. But what I found was two things that you can try is ask them what day of the week it is, and ask them what the weather is like today. And quite frequently they have some pre-recorded messages, but it sounds like a real person. I'm quite taken aback by it. But what they're asking you to do, they're saying is, we need to come and check your hot water tank. We're going to be there tomorrow. How's 4 o'clock? And they're quite aggressive about it. So, you know, as Sydney's saying, if someone's being aggressive or at least that forward with it, just say no. You know, you need to call someone. They're not supposed to call you and instigate that conversation. I see that Janet's looking to put 2 or 3 heat pumps. I think what you mean is a type of heat pump called a mini split, which are the ductless heat pumps. I'm building a legal basement apartment and hoping to have a heat pump for an independently for heat from the main house. I also have a family room addition with an unheated crawl space through each heat ducts, to which the heat ducts, so they lose a lot of heat. I've tried to insulate the ducts, but it is awkward and inefficient. So thinking of putting small ductless heat pumps for just that room. Would the program cover all 3? Also wondering about an HRV or an ERV.
So one important thing for heat pumps is that your heat pump would need to be able to distribute heat to all areas of your home. So for example, you could think of that, say maybe as at least one heat pump unit for each level of your home, or each kind of like separated part. So if you did have a separate basement apartment, or even if it wasn't, you would still need a mini split head for your basement for each level. So yeah, as Evan mentioned, there's ductless systems, or you can get a fully ducted system that would use your existing ductwork as well. So those mini split or ductless systems can be eligible for the rebate program as well. The HRVs and ERVs are not eligible for the rebate program. Your energy advisor will still make recommendations on ventilation if they recommend putting an HRV or an ERV, but there are not rebates available for those through the current program.
If I could add on the ERV or HRV, they only recommend them once the tightness of your home is getting to a point where it could start affecting the fresh air, the amount of fresh air that you have inside a home. So there's an actual threshold. It's not that they're doing it just because they're doing it. And John mentions that he's cautioning homeowners to have their energy assessment performed prior to contracting contractors and or suppliers. Otherwise, if the work is started, it's not going to be covered under the program. And Marion is asking about solar panels. Yes, indeed, they are covered under the program, and it's I'm not mistaken, it's $1,000 per kilowatt, up to a total of $5,000. See any more of whether I've missed some here?
Patrick A had, sorry, I was just going to say Patrick A had asked if there was a spreadsheet tool that summarizes all of these different loan and rebate programs and requirements. So in terms of finding all different types, we don't have a spreadsheet at this point, but we do have that incentive list that I linked to before on our website that summarizes a bunch of different incentive programs that are available. We'd be interested in building something like that, though, kind of like a one-stop shop for all things energy efficiency. But I'll link that incentives page in the chat as well. But if you do go through the Enbridge questionnaire, that will take you to all of the rebate categories and associated amounts. And as I mentioned before, the same rebate types that are eligible for the grant program are also eligible for the loan as well, for the Canada Greener Homes loan with CMHC.
Here's a question about waterproofing for you, Sydney, but under the resiliency measures, does the waterproofing have to be done from the outside of the foundation, or can it be done from the inside?
Outside. It needs to be done from the exterior in order to qualify. And another important point about the resiliency measures is that they would need to be done in combination with an energy efficient upgrade. So you couldn't just do the foundation waterproofing or crawl space moisture proofing. You would also have to do like insulation, for example. So you'd have to pair that in order to kind of meet the minimum requirements for the program.
I don't believe these programs are means tested. Everyone is eligible if they meet the criteria. There is no that's for Sheila. Sheila, there are no means tests for the rebates or the loans. However, I will say that one of the things the city said, I didn't put it in my slide because I didn't have any more details, was that they were investigating the option of having additional rebates for people that met certain income thresholds. So there may be something like that. And we know that other municipalities that got funding in the same manner that the city of Guelph did also provided some additional grants for people that met a means test over and above what they would already be getting through Enbridge and through the federal government. Well, it looks like we've gotten through all of these, unless you're seeing more than I can see here, Sydney.
I just see one from Mary that says, what about pool air source heat pumps? I assume that means for swimming pool for heating. So those, it would just be for your home that would be eligible for space heating or water heating.
For tenants, is there an incentive program for tenants? There is one for tenants that meet the low income cutoffs based on the number of people in the home. And this is a really interesting one. It's got a lot of hurdles that you have to jump, but essentially it's done through Enbridge. And if it's heated with natural gas, believe it or not, that Enbridge will spend up to I believe it's $8,000 per home at no cost to the tenant or to the landlord. But you've got to convince your landlord in order to do it. And the means test is based on standard criteria for if the household is one person, the income is X. If there are two people in the household, et cetera. So there is that program out there. And Sydney, can you remind me of the name of that one?
That is, I believe it's called the Home Winter Proofing Program. And there will be specific kind of energy advisor organizations that will offer that program in partnership with Enbridge based on your location.
And they'll actually do the work. They'll send the people in, so you won't even do the work yourself as well. Is there something for a gas fireplace? Well, frankly, there's nothing for gas because we're trying to get people to stop burning fossil fuels. What questions should I ask the potential contractors about heat pumps for heating and ventilation, heating and air conditioning, and for heat pump water heaters? Do you want to start with that one, Sydney?
Sure. What questions? I would say one thing that immediately comes to mind is asking about the kind of electrical capacity of your house and needs, and if you would need an electrical panel upgrade. And often if homeowners are putting in a heat pump and a heat pump water heater and they want to have room for an electric vehicle in the future, that that kind of panel upgrade would be required. So I'd say that would be one suggestion off the top of my head. And also asking about, if you're getting a ducted system, if your existing ductwork is going to be suitable to accommodate that as well. I would say if you're going with basically a standard air source heat pump versus a cold climate air source heat pump as well, that could be a question to ask too, and kind of what the difference may be for your home. Do you have any other suggestions, Evan?
Yeah, on the air source heat pump, technically your heating contractor is supposed to do something called a heat loss calculation, and they don't. Most of them won't do it, and some of them out there are actually oversizing systems, and oversizing air source heat pump systems aren't a good idea. That's not a good idea. So I'd be very careful if they say they don't need to do an air source heat. Sorry, if they say they don't need to do a heat loss calculation, they'll just say, "I know your home is 1,300 square feet, therefore I'm putting in a system this size." That doesn't cut it, because you could have a home that's 1,300 square feet and it could use half the amount of energy of the house next door because you've done all this other energy work that's part of it. So you want that contractor to take into account the work that you're going to be doing into your in your home as well. That's the big one for me that I've found, that I think there's an awful lot of confusion around it. Air source heat pumps aren't just plug and play. It's unlike a furnace. And unfortunately, with furnaces, most people have an oversized furnace in their house because in the past, there was no downside to the salesperson selling you an oversized heat pump, because they were worried if it was undersized that you would be screaming at them at the end of January when we get that week of minus 20 degree weather. So they'd rather oversize it than undersize it. So I'd say those things would definitely think twice if someone says they don't need to do a heat loss calculation without doing it.
Absolutely, that's such a good point.
You're looking at the one about the building addition. That Christy says she's building an addition and understands that it doesn't qualify, but what's the best use of the incentives when building an addition? E.g., plan would be to update our current house, build an addition and put solar panels on that part.
Yeah, so that is correct that an addition wouldn't qualify for rebate. So any of kind of the materials construction there would be considered new construction. So it wouldn't be eligible through the rebate program. But if you did put on an addition and then we're looking to put on solar panels, you could put on your addition and then have an energy evaluation to start the rebate program to then get your solar panels as well. I think that answered that question. But if you were updating the existing portion of your home as well as you were adding on the addition, any upgrades to your existing parts of your home would be eligible for rebates.
Helen's asking about the fireplace again. So just to put this into context, I think you were asking, or someone else was asking about a gas fireplace. A wood fireplace on average has an efficiency rating of -25. So that means that it actually draws heat out of your home significantly. So we're trying to encourage people to get rid of old fireplaces, whether they're gas or whether they're wood. Dare I say it, if someone really wants that ambiance, put in an electric one. And you don't even have to turn the heat on it because they have visual parts of it that can still give you the ambiance. If you want it to be a little warmer in the room, then just turn up the thermostat on your air source heat pump instead. There was an item that was expected to be in the building code for 2030 that would prohibit any combustion burning equipment in order to get a permit in Ontario starting in 2030. That one's fallen off the desk, unfortunately, in the short term, but we're hoping that it's going to get back there. So that would be anything that would be, gas fireplace, a gas stove, gas water heater, gas furnace, anything that burns wood. From a health perspective, there are health issues associated with with fireplaces and with gas burning stoves, but also from a climate change perspective, we want to get people off gas as soon as possible. And Sydney did mention that REAP isn't delivering the winterproofing program. You would go through Enbridge, and there's a contractor that they would do the assessment. They would line up the contractors and everything else associated with it. Glenn, that's wonderful. Glenn's joining us from the Bruce Peninsula, and he says, check out some of the electric fireplaces. Most of the ambience with 95% less carbon emissions. Great point, Glenn. Thanks. So David and Joan Mahler are saying that they were discouraged by their contractor from installing a heat pump. What can we say in response? And I don't know what to say to that, Sydney, without understanding the home and seeing their energy assessment and everything else. I don't know if we do you have something to say on that one? I don't feel comfortable doing it without that information, to be honest with you.
Yes, I would say that I guess my only question would be why, or just am I wanting to know more information about specifically why they did, why you were discouraged by your contractor. I think that kind of fits in line to, like, if, they may have a reason that they are discouraging that for your particular home, but it could also be, if you checked in with another contractor, they may have a different recommendation, or your energy advisor may have a different recommendation as well. So yeah, I'm with Evan that it's hard to say without knowing the specifics or what their reasons are there, but I do know that there are certainly some contractors out there that aren't as used to heat pumps, or they're used to maybe ones that are, haven't been installed correctly and people aren't happy with them. And so if it's kind of for some myths that have been busted by a lot of homeowners that have had heat pumps installed more recently, then that may be an opportunity to kind of dig in a little bit deeper with them about what their reasons are and you know, what they've heard, whether it's in general that they don't advise a heat pump or specifically for your home.
And I guess the other thing I'd suggest is, David and Joan, talk to another contractor and see what they say, given your circumstances. And Marion, just for clarification, is asking that who does the calculation. The HVAC contractor, the heating, ventilation, air conditioning contractor, should do the heat loss calculation. They don't like doing it, I can tell you right now. And Janet is asking about rebates for switching from gas stoves to some gas stoves or to dryers. There aren't. There were some grants about 2 years ago, federally. There were some grants specifically on high efficiency. Believe it or not, something we haven't talked about, but air source heat pump dryers, clothes dryers that use about a third of the energy that an electric dryer did. There were rebates for them, as well as I'm just trying to think. I think that was the only item that I can think of at this point. Yeah, and Glenn is suggesting that yes, some contractors are very supportive of air source heat pumps and others don't, primarily because Grandpa didn't use it, so change comes slowly. Definitely biases in the trade. Yeah, John is asking, why is oversizing a heat pump not a good idea? It's a really long technical explanation that I don't completely understand, other than what I've read is that it's not a good idea. I know that's not a good answer for you, but email me later, John, and we'll continue this conversation. I can pull up some stuff about it. It's a problem with the heat pump being able to, I won't even try. I'll stop at that point until I've got the material in front of me. Well, great. I guess the questions have definitely. Does REAP recommend homeowners consulting with a mechanical engineer or designer rather than relying solely on HVAC contractor?
That's a good question. I know that in terms of recommendation, we typically don't recommend like specific contractors or any kind of mechanical engineers or designers. I think it's always good to get more perspectives, if you can, on what would be good for your home. So if we're from a research standpoint, I think that it would be, you know, great to explore all the options that you have, and the more information the better, because then you can make a more informed decision on what's best for your home. Anything to add on that, Evan?
I'd agree. And regardless of what you're buying, even if you're buying it from your long lost friend, I'd still suggest you get 2 other quotes. So at least 3 quotes. If nothing else, you'll learn more, or you'll confirm what you already learned from that first person. And if you're still going to go with that first friend and you do want to buy it from them, you could share the information that you've learned from their competitor, and maybe they wouldn't mind you doing that at the same time. So always get at least 3 contractors, three quotes minimum. I knew a guy that got 9 for his solar project. I mean, that was obsessive. I don't suggest you do that, but yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. And Sydney, I can't thank you enough for helping out on this. And at Emerge, we're working closely with REAP, and we strongly recommend that you go to REAP for your EnerGuide ratings. Our new website's going to launch within the next couple of weeks, and we'll have direct links to REAP. And I know that Sydney has also added links so that you can get directly to them tonight as well. And Sydney, any last words from your perspective?
No, I just want to say thank you, Evan, for having me and allowing me to share all this information. And if anyone does have any questions, feel free to reach out. There's a contact form right through our website too. So even if you can find our website at reapgreen.ca, then if you submit any contact information there, then that'll get through to me. And we also have a phone number listed there as well, so you can reach us by phone as well.
Fabulous. Well, thank you. Thank you, Sydney, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight.